Welcome to Dread Central. I was wondering if you could introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, thank you. And my name is Rachel Stavis, and I am an exorcist.
So, what are some misconceptions people have about what you do?
Um, well, a couple of things, I guess. Well, I'm not a priest, so let's start there, right? That, we always see, especially in movies, that it's a priest who does this, and it's always a priest who does this. But there have been many cultures for such a long time that have been doing the removal of entities from people and places. So there's that. And then also that it's always horrible and just like, movie style entities, which is not necessarily the case because a lot of the population is actually walking around with attachment and might not even know.
hmm Do you consider what you do as an alternative form of medicine in any way?
I guess so. I guess, I think it's holistic. Let's look at it that way, right? So people have to take care of their physical health, or at least they should, right? Be taking care of their physical health, their mental health and well-being, but this is their spiritual health. So it's part of the whole big equation, I think.
When you're working with a client, how do you deliver bad news? Do you have a form of like bedside manner protocol in place?
Yes. So whenever I'm speaking to a client, and I do this every time first, we sit down, we have a conversation about what to expect, what's coming through from spirit, what they need to know, all of that stuff. And sometimes bad things come through. I mean, I see the worst of people first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it comes through, I always just ask, this is quite difficult to say. Are you sure you want to hear this? And just kind of try to work with spirit to say it in a way that's acceptable, digestible, if you will, and then move from there.
Why does the worst sort of come to the surface before anything else?
I wish I could tell you this is exactly why. I think it's just part of the nature of what I do. Like I can see entity with my eyes. That's the difference between me and a lot of people, I guess. So I guess what comes with that territory is like you see people's darkness first. So, in order to take care of that darkness, we have to see what I call like the root, not the branches, right? So, the branches are like what people come in for. They come in for things like, I have addiction issues, or I feel very blocked, or trauma, or, whatever. We have to go to the lower level of that. Where did that all come from and start there?
From my understanding, you have like a lot of higher end clients that might need privacy. How do these people find you?
So what feels like forever ago, but wasn't, I started doing this word of mouth. I started opening myself up to spirit and being able to work with people one-on-one. I never thought it was going to get out and be a big thing. Like I was very content just doing it myself with
Yeah.
people here and there. But people would have a really good experience. They would go and tell someone else. And so that's kind of how I did everything. And it stayed that way kind of a secret, I guess, for a really long time, working on, I don't know, everyone from Oscar winners and heads of studio and rock icons to grandmas and kids and, people next door and all of that. And then, well, I guess now it's kind of becoming a bigger thing that people know about. So they're finding me more.
You've written a book, Sister of Darkness. How has the early response been?
I think really good. I say that because I was so nervous to put a book out at all because listen, this work is not always well received, right? You can be considered crazy or get death threats from super religious people and like all kinds of stuff. So I'd been through a lot of that already and I was nervous to put it out, but at the same time I thought this is the way to reach people who I can't just see, in my own spirit room. So I just did it. And so far it's been really good. I think people have enjoyed it and have learned from it. And the reviews are nice. I mean, so for the most part, for the most part.
The book itself, it explores the intersection of pain, trauma, and malevolent forces. Are we more susceptible to dark forces when we're dealing with emotional trauma?
Yes, that's exactly how all of this works. So, like everything is energy, right? We're energy, stuff is energy, everything is energy. And we live in a culture where unfortunately, we have a lot of trauma, right? We just do. Like, kids have trauma, adults have, it's like the one universal equalizer that we all have trauma. And when we have trauma, our baseline frequency kind of, how we interact with others, how we interact with ourselves, how we interact with the world, it takes a hit, a very quick hit. And we don't really know how to pull ourselves out of that quickly. Not that you should necessarily, but how to process it, I guess, in a healthy manner. A lot of us just kind of stuff it down, and we're told to move on, get over it, all of these things. So what happens is we end up storing that trauma in the body. That trauma sends off its own signal, and we have these entities and attachments that are looking for low frequency to feed on because they themselves are low frequency. They're actually looking for an exact energetic match. And so when we're in the space, there's one out there, and that's how it all happens. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, if you will, to have trauma at all.
I've talked to therapists, and there's always a conversation about how they protect themselves from bringing that trauma home with them. How do you
Sure.
spiritually protect yourself?
It's not the easiest thing in the world, depending on what you're working on. So if I'm working on people and it's like the normal things that I see, not the movie style entities, it's okay. I'm just pretty tired. Everything's kind of crazy for a day or two. I can't really move very well, and I take a lot of salt baths and have tattoos of protection and all this kind of stuff. So it works out okay. But when you're dealing with something like a major space, a huge space that's held by entity, that could take days and days to recover from, just because it's so big and so much.
Have you ever felt that you have been in physical danger?
There are a couple of times that I've had situations where I was like, okay, I might walk out with something scary. And I write all of these things down. I keep a journal of like my worst cases, if you will, just to
Yeah.
like, you know. And there was one time that I was dealing with a space, and unfortunately with spaces, especially if they're well-known spaces, I have to sign NDAs. So I can't say exactly what the space was, but it's a high traffic space, let's say, where people come and go. And I was hired to remove the thing that was in there. And I've seen a lot of things by now, so I was like, okay, cool, no problem, I can do that. And it was the one time where an entity actually hurt me physically. uh it's never happened before, and hasn't happened since. And it really made me rethink, like, okay, maybe there are some things out there that I have to protect myself even further from. But that particular story was so crazy that we are thinking about bringing that kind of true account to the screen now. So I'm working on doing that now.
That's really exciting. I've read that even this book is optioned by FX. Is that correct?
Yes, and unfortunately, we are still on strike, so I can't talk too much about
Oh,
that. My
of course.
solidarity, of course, is with the WGA.
My thought.
When we can, I'm happy to tell you all about it.
Right, of course.
But I
Yes.
will say that once we do reach a fair wage for everyone, the negotiations are settled and everybody's happy. I'll be glad to go back to work with my favorite person in the world, who is Pamela Adlon. She's just terrific and the most brilliant person alive, I think.
And what would I know her from? Like, would I recognize any of her resume?
Oh my gosh, she's done so many things, but most recently Better Things. She did 5 seasons of Better Things. She's also the voice of Bobby Hill, which I bring up all the time because
No way.
my favorite. I
Uh,
know it's ridiculous, but I'm just like, I was so like, oh, but you're the voice of Bobby Hill. So occasionally she does it for me.
so part of what you're known for is being, the only known woman of your field. Do you feel like you're treated differently? Do you feel like this has impacted your career?
It's for better or for worse, but 100% yes, differently. Like, it depends on who you ask. So with other women, it's like, of course, that makes sense. Of course you can do this or whatever, and it's not about how you look, and it's not about how you carry yourself, and it's not about any of those things. If you ask some men, then you get all kinds of things in your, let's say, sliding into your DMs, like, right? Like you can't possibly, I've literally had, you can't possibly be an exorcist because you look the way you do. You can't possibly do this job correctly because you have boobs, like all kinds of weird, gross things. And I'm just like, that is a problem on your end, my friend. But
That's
yeah,
too bad.
yes.
Yeah, although not surprising.
I know that's the unfortunate part, right? Like, not surprising. Probably you need an exorcism, but okay, like, take it however you want to take
Yeah.
it.
Uh, so, of course, you've mentioned that you are not a priest, and I understand that. Do you have any relationship with the Vatican, maybe good or bad? What is the dynamic there?
Not the Vatican per se. I have worked with priests before. I have worked with clergy, and I've had really good relationships with some. I think for me, I mean, listen, I would be open to going to the Vatican, meeting with the Pope, and talking about my experiences. I think that would be an honor to do
Mhm.
because, at the end of the day, I'd like to think that what everyone's doing is trying to help people. We're trying to help others. And what has been given to them by God, Christ consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, has been given to me. So we're on the same side.
How can people protect themselves, let's say, if we don't have access to someone like you?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of ways, and they're going to sound so cheesy. So bear with me. But they're the kinds of things that are so normal sounding, but just being kind to people is number one. Speaking to yourself kindly, interacting with the world kindly. It sounds ridiculous, but at the end of the day, we're trying to raise our frequency, and keep ourselves high, and doing things for others, doing things that are good in the world, putting good out in the world helps protect you, even if it's for selfish reasons. And also, I do have on my Instagram that I give everybody for free, my 30-day connection to spirit, and that's to help you. Obviously it's 30 days, and it's to help you connect to spirit, open up your ability to talk to your own spirit guides and those who have passed, and also raise that vibration, because the higher you are on that ladder, the more protected you are just by nature. You've seen happy people, and you're just like, wow, they're so, like, how do they do that? That's what they're doing.
Um, do you have digital clients? And if so, what is that like to read people, through that extra lens or medium?
Yeah, so I used to not take remote clients because I was nervous about exactly what you just said. Like, how weird is that when they're not here and I can't be face to face with them and like in their energy? So I waited a long time before I started taking them because I wanted to make sure that I could do it correctly. And I do take them off and on sometimes throughout the year whenever I have an opening in my schedule to do it. Uh, it's been kind of fun and interesting because it's nice to connect to people all over the world, because it's not just, here in LA or whatever, it's everywhere. And it's been exciting and challenging to do that. It is a little harder, I would say, just to connect and be able to connect to someone energetically through all of this, equipment. But it's been productive, I will say, and successful, and I'm happy to do it. I'm a little tired now. I'm on hiatus technically from doing that now, because it's so much, and sometimes you can take, I don't know, 7 clients a week, or which is exhausting. So now I'm like, I'm gonna take a break. But yes, it's been good.
And where can people find you online if they want to find your book or maybe try to connect with you? How can people do that?
Sure. So I am mostly on Instagram, honestly, at RH, my initials, Stavis.com, or RH Stavis. I do have a website, rhstavis.com, and also Sister of Darkness is everywhere on Amazon, and all the good places. I do have a TikTok. I warn you. I have it. I'm not awesome at it, but it's there. And it's the
Okay.
same, RH Davis.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It was super fascinating and good luck with the book.